taxi driver. Victor Kane's hands gripped the cracked steering wheel of his cab, his knuckles white from the pressure. He had driven the same streets for over a decade, but the routine was anything but mundane. Every night, he wasn't just a taxi driver. He was a hunter. The rain blurred the windshield, the wipers barely keeping up as Victor glanced in his rearview mirror. His mother's picture, faded and yellowed with time, hung from the visor. She smiled in the photograph, her arm draped lovingly around a much younger version of him. He was barely 6 in that picture. That was before she was taken from him. Victor's mother, Gloria, had been a survivor. A prostitute by necessity, she worked tirelessly to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. But the world wasn't kind. One night, she picked up the wrong man. Victor was just a boy when he found her lifeless body in their apartment, her blood staining the cracked linoleum. The police had no leads, no suspects, just another unsolved case in a city drowning in crime. But Victor swore he wouldn't let it go. If justice wouldn't come for his mother, he'd bring it to her killer himself, even if it took his whole life. The man who slid into the back seat that night fit the profile. Mid-40s, disheveled, with a smirk that made Victor's skin crawl. He adjusted the rearview mirror to get a better look. "Where to?" Victor asked, his voice calm but laced with an edge. The man leaned forward, his breath reeking of alcohol. "You know anywhere I can have some fun? A good time?" Victor's jaw tightened. He forced a smile and nodded. "Yeah, I know a place. Real discreet." As the cab rolled through the city, the man's drunken mutterings faded into the background. Victor's mind raced. Was this the one? Could this be the man who took everything from him? He felt the weight of the knife hidden beneath his seat. The taxi pulled up to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place was desolate, its windows shattered and walls covered in graffiti. Victor cut the engine and turned to the man. "We're here." The man squinted through the rain-streaked window. "This doesn't look like..." Before he could finish, Victor was out of the car, dragging the man out with a force that sobered him instantly. Panic set in as the man stumbled, his protests silenced by Victor's blade pressed against his throat. "You ever meet a woman named Gloria Kane?" Victor growled, his voice trembling with rage. The man's eyes widened, but Victor could tell he wasn't the one. He was just another predator, another parasite. Victor's blade found its mark, and the man crumpled to the ground. For years, this was Victor's routine. He picked up men looking for a prostitute, questioning them, hoping for a sign that one of them was the killer. The ones who didn't fit the profile walked away unscathed. The ones who did never made it home. But the city had noticed the disappearances. The press dubbed him the Midnight Slayer. Undercover officers began patrolling the streets, posing as potential fares. One night, Victor picked up a young man who seemed too polished, too calm. He gave the same answer as many before him. "Yeah, I'm looking for a good time." Victor's instinct screamed that something was off, but he followed through with his routine. When they reached the warehouse, the man pulled a gun. "Victor Kane, you're under arrest." Victor didn't resist. He had known this day would come. His work wasn't done, but he had come to accept that his quest for vengeance might end behind bars. Prison was a world of its own, brutal and unforgiving. Victor kept his head down, biding his time. One day, while in the mess hall, he heard a voice that froze him in place. "Yeah, I remember her. Gloria, right? Feisty little thing." Victor turned slowly. The voice belonged to a gaunt, gray-haired man with a cruel smile. The name stitched on his uniform read, D. Mercer. It was him, the man who had taken his mother from him. That night, Victor waited in the shadows of the prison yard. When Mercer passed, Victor pounced, years of grief and rage boiling over. Mercer barely had time to scream before Victor silenced him forever. As the guards dragged Victor away, he felt no regret. For the first time in decades, the weight on his chest lifted. His life had been consumed by vengeance, and now it was done. Locked away in solitary confinement, Victor closed his eyes. His mother's face came to him, not the broken, bloodied image from his nightmares, but the warm, loving face from the photograph. He smiled. Justice had finally been served.